this computer. And then we will.
I got a pop-up here. It should just say continue, I guess.
We're going to go live on Facebook.
Is it okay if I I have a glass of wine here? Is it
Absolutely.
okay if I take a sip now and then?
Absolutely.
Is it okay if I call you Joni, or should I call you Joan, or
Whatever you prefer. I'm not particular.
just don't call you late for dinner?
That's right. Look at me. Look off there, John. I'm so not used to typing. I haven't typed this out live yet, so that's good. This is the 11th of April. All right, here we go. Share this to the public, and we are going to share this to my page. And we are going to share it to this page. And here we go. It'll take a minute for it to zoom out to that page, which will give us time to catch up. Here.
Now streaming on Facebook, it says.
Wonderful. There we go. We're going to double check it. You're going to look at the posts. There we are. Perfect. And the sound is coming out. All right. I'm going to turn it down here. All right. Zoom in here. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Paperback Exchange Bookstore Facebook Live page, where we have the honor today of interviewing a local author in Newport Richey and around the country, Mr. John York. Welcome, John York. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, hello. Thank you, Joni, for having me.
We are the Paperback Exchange Bookstore here at 6412 Ridge Road. We are mostly a used bookstore, but we do love to support our local authors. John just happened to walk in one day and said, "Hey, I'm in the area. I'm an author. What do you think?" And we've got his books back here with us. We've got several of his books, not all of them. But thank you again for joining us, John. What brought you to the little burg of Newport Richey? Where did you start out at, and how did you end up here?
Well, Newport Richey was kind of a happy accident. My grandparents used to live in Newport Richey, down on what is now Grand. It was called Boulevard South at the time. And their house is no longer there. One of the hospitals is there. But we came from California, my wife Paula and I. We lived in the San Diego County backcountry area, where we had a ranch and a winery. And it just got to be a little bit too much work for us. And I retired in 2016, and so I could start, concentrating on writing. And the ranch work and the vineyard and the winery were just too much. So I decided to come back to Florida. My wife and I actually met in Fort Lauderdale, so we're kind of coming home.
So coming back all full circle back to the grandparents.
Right. Yeah.
Place. So you have a lot of fond memories of this area. That's how you ended up here. So you've got a great experience. From what I understand, you're originally from Ohio. Go Buckeyes, OH.
A Buckeye, right? I was born and mostly raised there. My father traveled for his work, and so we went to a couple of other states. I lived in New Mexico for a while, But yeah, mostly from Ohio in the central part. Kind of a farm family, extended farm family.
So tell us about the genres of books that you write. You have several that you're toying with right now. We've got your first book that I have here with us today called The Eighth Day. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Okay. The Eighth Day is actually a book. It's not really I didn't mean it to be a sequel, but it kind of follows on another book that I wrote called Mind Meld. And Eighth Day is science fiction. It takes place in the future. It's kind of a quasi-apocalyptic tale and sort of rebuilding, the world after things got kind of, messed up from overuse of resources and terrorist attacks. And I put all kinds of disasters in there just to make sure the world was pretty messed up.
So this is called The Eighth Day, and I have a picture of Mind Meld up there. I don't happen to have a copy of Mind Meld here with me, but tell us where folks can get that book.
Well, Mind Meld is sold on Amazon, on Brooks. Brooks and Noble.
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble, yeah.
Gotcha. And they can pick it up here on your Amazon site too for John York.
That's right. And so that was kind of a tale of starting, how it's science fiction about parallel worlds, not space aliens. And it kind of gets things opened up where, a portal to another world. And then that kind of moves into the Eighth Day. The Eighth Day is, I say, a little bit more post-apocalyptic, and but it has some of the same characters in it, and then some new ones because it's 50 years later. And
so Mind Meld happens, and then this is Eighth Day is 50 years later.
50 years later, and the Eighth Day is kind of a reference to what happens if, God decided to keep on doing stuff after the seventh day.
Without any rest, right?
Yeah. Well, he rested in between.
All right, now let's talk about that. We've got a little bit of science fiction, dystopian on those two, the first run. And then we moved into your next book, which is Journey to Eden.
Journey to Eden. And that's historical fiction, yeah. It takes place in the early 18th or 19th century between, I think it's 1828 and 1848. There are four main young characters and four families that they come from different parts of the United States. At that time was all, at least the white American United States was east of the Mississippi. So this book deals with slavery, the mass immigration that happened at the time from Europe, and of course with what happened to the Native Americans as we continued to push them further west. It's historical fiction. There's a lot of very accurate depictions of historic events in there. There's also some historical figures that are accurate. Of course, the characters are all fictional, but
we're talking Fort Snelling. We're talking Eden Valley, right?
Right there. That's the name of the Mississippi and the Missouri or the Minnesota River. All my books have odd characters in them, whether they're aliens or regular humans. This book is no exception. It has some very unusual characters in it, including one of the main characters is a Indian boy. Starts out as just born at the beginning of the book, and he has a condition that it's an actual condition where his body is all covered in hair. It's called, in today's vernacular, the Wolfman syndrome. Mm-hmm. And of course that affects his life pretty dramatically. There's another character who's an albino giant. He's over 7 feet tall, and so
you have to be historic. You have to like history, and you have to like a little bit of maybe some of the fantastical history that we've experienced as well, right?
Yeah. It's got a lot of action in it. It's a journey, mostly up the Mississippi, the northern Mississippi, but A lot of
1847, 1850s in that area, right?
right, yes.
Excellent, excellent. And then last but not least, I have this book, which is just yet another genre that you've got going on here. What is this?
Right.
Billy Bean's Ghost.
Billy Bean's Ghost is a paranormal murder mystery. It's a novella, as you can see. It's quite a bit thinner.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100, I think 65 pages. My others are
For
well
some of
over
us folks that
400
have
pages.
commitment issues, right?
Right. I wrote this book because some of my readers said they just don't have time to read. I said, well, you probably could read this one in a day or so. I also just published a few days ago the audiobook version of this, which is only 5 hours and 31 minutes. So I don't think anybody has any excuse. They had to
Who we
read.
got? We've got Brad Pitt doing the voiceover. Who have we got?
I wish I had Brad Pitt. Unfortunately, it's just me.
Christopher Walken, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, good.
My studio talked me into that. They said my voice was, kind
Yes,
of right for that sort of thing.
You've got a very bright voice for that. Very wonderful. All right. So
tried.
who inspires your stories?
Well, I have been a storyteller since I was a kid. When I was very, very little, just a tiny guy, my mother would read stories to me, and they were usually fairy tales. And then later, she got me a set of books that were Roman and Greek myths. And I really loved those, and they had pictures in them and stuff. And so I would tell my friends these stories, except I'd kind of make stuff up too, because I didn't really remember all the details. And then when I got in high school, I started writing little short stories, joined the journalism staff, the high school newspaper. And and then when I, became an adult, that was sometime in my late 50s, I think. But as I grew older and finally got into a professional career, I did a lot of professional writing, management and technology and so forth.
SOP, stuff like that.
Right. It wasn't until
Thou shalt.
7 ways to be a better person and all this.
I spent a lot of time in the industry. I worked at Dow Chemical. I worked at Home Depot. So yes, I'm fully aware of all of that.
So I just couldn't stand to even think about reading any more of those. So in 2007 or 15, right before I retired, I decided to write my first book, which was called Wolf's Tale. And it was kind of a history of events that had happened to me, but I didn't want to write a biography. So I wrote it as a fictional memoir. And I think people liked it because it's still my bestseller.
So here's a picture of it here. Let's see. Wolf's Tale.
Wolf's Tale.
Memoir of a man named Wolf.
Yeah, and I came up with the name Wolf because Jack London and Wolf Larson and those tales were some of my favorite books. I had a sailboat when I lived in Florida many years ago, and it was called the Ghost. The first one was called the Ghost, and then the Wolf was called the second one. So Wolf just kind of seemed like a natural thing. Yeah, and then that's what kind of inspired me, because I was just going to write that one book. I had to kind of get it out of my system. I kind of wanted to write it for my grandchildren, which they've never read it.
Something that they would read besides the technical manuals, right?
Yeah, maybe they'll read it when they get older. But
so what's the most surprising thing you've learned as far as something that you didn't expect? What was surprising about this journey of writing?
Well, that people were actually reading them. I thought it was just going to be one book, and then I started writing. The first book, Wolf's Tale, ends with the main character writing books, and that was just came out of the top of my head. But I kind of set myself up, so I just wrote Mind Meld, and then I just kept writing, and now I'm just getting ready to publish my 6th novel, which is going to be called Journey to Choctaw, or no,
Yes.
It's a trouble in Choctaw County, but it's about a journey, and it's got a little monster in it, and but it's a cowboy kind of tale. and I'm already working on my 7th. These these stories just pop in my head, usually at night when I wake up and there's a story there and I just embellish on it.
You have to try to share it. Let's see here. Let's take everybody to your page. This is your author page.
Mm-hmm.
And we can check out your books here. Journey to Eden, 8th Day, Mind Meld and Wolf's Tale. And then here's your next book, Trouble with Choctaw County.
Right. Yeah.
You were just sharing the cover art with that.
All my other previous books were self-published. This one got picked up by a New York publisher. They're called Document Publishing, and they read this script and thought it was a good story, and so I was really excited when they offered me a contract. I just never thought that was going to happen. It kind of came out of left field.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, they're forecasting an August release. I finished the book and we're working on the formatting and so forth. And now I'm working on the marketing. I've never been a marketing guy. I was always a computer scientist, a technology guy. But I understand the importance of marketing. And now I'm getting sort of drinking through a fire hose and what I should have been doing in the last several years. So
well, I can tell you that is one of the things we struggle with here at the bookstore. A lot of used books. We don't have barely any new Westerns coming across the desk at all.
Yeah.
Louis L'Amour, Kelton, Zane Grey, the Johnstones, take over the whole section.
Right.
But we're always searching, and often I've had people that would come in and say, hey, this popped up on the computer. Let's look at this. And I would really like to read these. And we go to look it up, and here, lo and behold, it's Kindle only. So I'm just going to put a shout out to you as an author, like I do with all the authors, only because I'm a little partial to printed material. We still have a large group of people that want printed material. And I know the way things are set up now, we've made some adjustments, and I know authors have made adjustments as well, as far as whether they have hard copies to give away or share or sign. So it's a difficult thing, but it's adapt or die at this point with bookstores and printed material versus Kindle versus ebooks and things like that. What do you think? You think paper books will ever go away?
I hope not. I don't think so, because you're right. A lot of people still want to hold books. Most of my reader fans want to hold the book. And so I always intend to do a paperback, even if I only sell a handful of them. But so far, I've been pretty lucky.
Well, I remind people, I read a lot of dystopian novels, and the very first thing people do is they always get rid of all their books, and then they go out and live off the land. And then the next thing that happens is they have no electricity or cell phone or any way to pipe that in. So keep those books coming, keep that printed material coming. There's a place for them. Hopefully we can do it without killing the environment.
That's right. You have a great resource. I mean, 90,000 books, and I've always loved small indie bookstores, and I was so excited to find that there's one here in Newport Richey. The two that were in Ramona, where I came from, they closed down, and I was very disappointed. I did my couple book launches at their stores, and but yeah, you can count on me to keep bringing you books.
And we have over 150 local authors here. We really, really do support the local author game in this area. I know there's a few bookstores in Tampa as well that do quite well with the local authors. Sometimes it's a little back and forth because of the used portion of our store, but we sell your books new, and we always share where they can get them besides here. I don't have a big budget for them, but I sure do love when you guys just come strolling in and go, hey, can I have my book here? And it's like, yeah, this is what we do. We do a little interview, we have it on our .com. We will also be more than happy to provide information in our chat for other places. I can share that up later, and you can share that up later as far as links go, where people can get your books. So what you're working on now? You've got one that you just finished, and then the other one, the Choctaw one, when do you suppose that will be coming out?
They say in August. We have to put together marketing and publicity plan. I'm
You've
having a
made it
meeting.
through the editing process already, though?
Yes, it's done. So
Good,
I passed it
good.
out to some. I passed the manuscript, the PDF version of the manuscript to some beta readers. We're trying to get some review feedback, um, and so if anybody out there would be interested in reading a beta copy, it's a PDF is the only format that I have right now.
You can definitely get a hold of John if you would like to be a beta reader on his site. He also would like to let everybody know he is a member of the Florida Writers Association. And if any of you are interested in becoming a member or checking out the site, here it is, floridawriters.org. I know they do a lot of wonderful things here for our local authors as far as hooking up people to find where they can get things published. I know Amazon is a pretty good site, but some people don't want to use Amazon. If they didn't want to use Amazon, what would be your next best advice for somebody who's wanting to write their book?
For writing a book?
Mhm.
Well, Goodreads is a good place to have a presence as an indie writer, especially, and try to get your followers to, participate in the Goodreads. They have tens of thousands of people that, check that out and are looking for, references for a good book. And there's there are other sites, but I'm actually just trying to figure out what some of those are myself. I think that the way I started was I didn't even have Kindles. I just all had printed books. Now I was a winemaker, so in a winemaking region. So what I would sell my books at the wineries, and that's kind of how I got started. As a
I'm
new
showing
writer,
I'm showing folks here the Goodreads site. It's a great source for whether you're reading or writing or looking for a new author or looking to hook up with other authors as well.
right. There's another one called Indie View that I belong to, and there's where writers win. Say that 3 times real fast.
Where writers win.
Where writers win. If you're especially if you're an indie author, self-published or want to be, that's a good resource for. They have lots of recorded seminars to help you figure out how to write and what to do after you finish a book, how to market that book. So those are some of the things that I've been using.
Well, make sure you check out r.com at www.pbx-books.com. John's books are up there. They're available here in store. If we don't have them in stock, if you just wait a week or so, we can probably get them out to you, whether you order them off of r.com or you can go to the Amazon site where John has his books for sale. Look for author John York, and you'll look for The Eighth Day and Journey to Eden and Billy Bean's Ghost. And thank you so much, John, for joining us today.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you again for having me. Hope to get down to your store soon. I'll bring some more books.
Yes, please do. We've got signed copies here. And if you want to reach out to John, please do so at his website. We will be sharing his website and all of the other links that we talked about today in our chat afterwards. So thank you so much, John, for joining us. It's Joni again with the Paperback Exchange Bookstore.
Cheers.
Cheers. Have a wonderful evening. And here's some great book sales for you.
Thank you.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Stop this recording.